What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to another episode of the PJ Hoop Podcast. I'm your host, PJ, and on today's episode, it's the first of the next probably 6-7 episodes where I'll be doing a deep dive on literally every team in the NBA. I'll be going down every division, and today's episode, we're going to be starting off with the Southeastern Division, and that consists of the Atlanta Hawks, the Charlotte Hornets, the Miami Heat, the Orlando Magic, and the Washington Wizards. So that's going to be today's episode. Next episode, I'll be covering the Central Division, which consists of the Milwaukee Bucks, the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Indiana Pacers, the Chicago Bulls, and the Detroit Pistons, okay? So I just kind of want to give you guys a rundown of how it's going to go. There's about 5 different things I'm going to be covering about every single team. I'll be talking about their contract situation. If they have a rookie, their rookie expectations. I'll also be covering the team's floor and the team's ceiling. And now with the team's floor and the team's ceiling, I just want to let you guys know my answers are going to be somewhat vague just because, one, I don't want to give away my predictions and like what my opinion is fully, because right before the season starts, I'll give my actual season predictions. So I don't want to give away too much in this episode. So yes, it will be kind of vague. The team's floor and the team's ceiling will be somewhat vague, okay? So just keep that in mind as I go through every team, and every episode I will remind you just so you guys don't forget. I'll also be going over my opinion of the team, and then also players to keep your eye on. Players I personally would keep my eye on. I usually do this every summer. I usually just talk on the phone with my brother about it, but now we're here, so we just going to dive right into it. The first team on my list is the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta last year finished with a 36-46 record. Their offensive rating, they finished 12th in offensive rating, 27th in defensive rating. So we're going to dive straight into Atlanta. Okay, here we go. We're going to talk about their contract situation first. So the Atlanta Hawks as a team, they're under the first apron by about $5 million. They're also under the second apron by about $16 million. Players with 1 year left on their contract is Clint Capella, Larry Nance Jr., Jalen Johnson will be a restricted free agent next summer. And then Garrison Matthews has 1 year left on his deal. And obviously the biggest dominoes, the biggest trade chip they got is Trae Young. He has 2 years left on his deal with the third year being a player option. So obviously something to be kind of monitoring. Obviously Trae Young, I know they were trying to trade him over the summer. I know he was kind of not happy being there and whatnot. So that's obviously something to monitor as he's literally going into another iteration of this team, just to see how how that goes with that. Okay, so rookie expectations for the Atlanta Hawks. Obviously, they had the number 1 pick. They drafted Zachary Richiche from France, 6'9", forward. And what I expect out of him this upcoming year, in my opinion, is he'll probably be a role player. I don't expect him to start necessarily. Maybe at some point, he'll get starter minutes, or he'll start. Maybe he will start opening night. I don't know. But from him, expectations for him is honestly just showing the NBA world his offensive and defensive versatility. I think both sides. I think he's pretty versatile. Doesn't mean he's good. Obviously, we all know in other year drafts he wouldn't be the first pick. I don't expect him to be the franchise player, nothing crazy like that. But I do expect throughout this NBA season for him to show the NBA world and NBA fans like, hey, I can do stuff offensively and defensively, because I watched him do it over in France last season. So I expect that to be the same this year. So yeah, that's my floor, and that's what my opinion is about him. So I want to talk about the team's floor and the team's ceiling. So for me, the floor for the team is the lottery. I think that's pretty obvious. And by the lottery, obviously, we all know lottery picks is 1 through 15. So again, in that range. Obviously, I don't think they can get the first pick again. Honestly, don't even think they'll be top 5. If anything, Atlanta probably land between 10 and 15, And then also I think their ceiling is a first-round series. And that's if, obviously, things fall a certain way. If Richiche, hits and he's, better than expected. If Jalen Johnson takes that next leap, which I'm getting ready to talk more about Jalen Johnson. And, yeah, that's all. If all things go well for them, that ends up happening for the Atlanta Hawks. Okay, so now I want to talk about kind of just my opinion on the Atlanta Hawks. So I do believe that this Atlanta Hawks team has an opportunity, and doesn't mean it's going to happen. But again, I'm just putting it out there because I think it's something that potentially could happen. I think there's potential behind it. Like I said, I'm not putting my feet to it, but I'm just saying it's something to keep out for. I think this Atlanta Hawk team potentially could be the best defensive team Trae Young's ever had. Simply because if you look at who's on the team now, a little bit more bigger. They got bigger wings. Obviously, they have Jalen Johnson. I think he's a pretty solid defender. They got Dyson Daniels. He's a plus defender. Risha Shea, you guys will see, he's a plus defender. They have bigger defenders around him now. Bigger wings are going to be around Trae Young. And not to say DeJounte Murray. Obviously, we know DeJounte Murray was a good defender. But I just think there's bigger wings around him now, and I think that may benefit them defensively. I think they may be better defensively because in years past with Atlanta, they didn't really finish that high in defense. Their best defensive year with Trae Young was they finished 21st in defensive rating, and that was that same year that Nate McMillan took over. I think about halfway through the season he took over. So I think Atlanta literally has a chance, to be better than that. Because last year alone, they finished 27th. Okay, they finished 27th, and I think they're good enough to go up 7 spots defensively. And that's just my opinion. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. Could be right. We'll see. I think they do have an opportunity, though, to be better than 21st defensively with their personnel this upcoming season. Players to keep your eyes on. I kind of just named them a little bit. My guy Jalen Johnson from Duke. Like I told you guys, I am a Duke Blue Devils basketball fan. And before the college basketball season start, I'll let you guys know where that whole Duke love comes from, because there's a backstory to it, a personal one. So before the college basketball season start, I'll go into that deep dive. And obviously, as you can see, I got the Bama on. I'm an Alabama Crimson Tide football fan. I've been a big fan of theirs for over 15 years. That's my team. We just killed the little team this past weekend. But anyways, that's besides the point. So Jalen Johnson, I think he has opportunity to take a year 3 leap. Last year, I even called it last summer. I told my brother, I was like, hey, I think Jalen Johnson's probably going to take a leap this year. He did that. I think this year 3, he's going to have another opportunity to take another leap. And the reason why he went... So when he got drafted, I already felt when he got drafted, I thought Atlanta had a steal right off rip, because Jalen Johnson beforehand, I believe, was the number 1 rated high school kid in his class. I think he was number 1, if I remember correctly, or top 3, top 4, or whatever in high school class. He went to Duke, and at Duke he performed well to me. He was really, to me, and I'm not saying he's this player at all, but he had glimpses of a Ben Simmons to me, and I felt that way when I watched him at Duke. I was like, bro, this dude's nice with it, But yeah, so he slips in the draft to Atlanta. Atlanta snagged him up. I think it was because he was dealing with injuries at Duke. So I think that's why his draft stock fell. And even in the NBA, he dealt with a little bit of injuries. His rookie year, he only played 22 games. 2 years ago, he played 70 games. And then this last year, he only played 56 games. Excuse me. Played 56 games this last year. But his minutes increased this last year. He played 34 minutes a game this last year. So I'm hoping that's not... I'm hoping the minute increase is not why we saw the reduction, in his game. But that's somebody to keep your eyes out on. Obviously, they got rid of DeJounte Murray, so there's going to be shot opportunities. I do expect Jalen Johnson's shots to increase by 3 to 4. So he's probably going to be close to, if not over, 20 points a game. I feel pretty confident saying he's probably going to be at 20, if not more, if he's getting that many more shot attempts. And I think he'll probably have the ball in his hands a little bit more. Maybe they'll try and have Trae Young off ball a little bit more and use Jalen Johnson as a hub. I would like to see that more for them personally. Another player I want to say that they, to kind of keep your eyes out on is Dyson Daniels. Dyson Daniels obviously played for the New Orleans Pelicans, and he was a role player, but he showed a lot of glimpses, a lot of promise to me defensively. And I think he's going to be a big part of Atlanta's defense this year. I expect him to get big minutes. He's probably going to play about close to 30 minutes a game for Atlanta, I'm assuming, 25 to 30 minutes. And I'm just excited to watch what he brings to Atlanta. I think in Atlanta he's going to have a larger role than what he had in New Orleans. Obviously, New Orleans, he was, behind some very talented players, and Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, he was behind those guys. So I don't feel like he really had an opportunity really to show what he's about. But Atlanta's a new place. I think he's going to show his defensive versatility and what he really can do on that end of the floor. I think that's where he's really going to make his money. So that's a player I'm looking out to be watching for on the team. Obviously, I kind of just named the last player. Well, just talked about him earlier, Trae Young. This potentially could be his last year in Atlanta. We'll see how everything goes. We'll see if any team is willing to pick him up. I heard his draft stock is not that high right now. His trade value is not that high right now. So we'll see what happens with Trae Young. I want to talk about also their draft capital. So Atlanta's draft capital, 2025 is owed to the Spurs. They have the Lakers pick in 25, and then they have Sacramento's pick if it falls 13 to 30. They get that in 25. 26, the Spurs have the right to swap with them in 26. They get Sacramento's pick if it hasn't already been conveyed. In 25, they get it in 26. It's 11 to 30th. 11 to 30th goes to Atlanta if it's not conveyed in 25. 27 goes to the Spurs. And they get the least favorable of Milwaukee and New Orleans if either is 5 to 30. So really weird stipulations on that one on 27. And then 28 to 31, they have their own picks. So that's the Atlanta Hawks. And I want to take this time to let you guys know, if you Atlanta fans, if you feel like I missed out on something, or you feel like I could have talked more about something, or there was something you want to debate with me about, let me know in the comments down below, my Atlanta Hawk fans, okay? So that's Atlanta. Next team, the Charlotte Hornets. Charlotte last year finished 21-61. Offensive rating last year was 28th. Defensive rating was 29th. So obviously they dealt with a lot of injuries last year, so I didn't pay too much mind to that. But good thing is the team is under the first apron and second apron. If you want to know more about the aprons and you're not familiar with them, literally just Google it. I'm not going to sit here and, because there's like layers to each apron, and I just don't have the time to do that right now. So, but yeah, something to keep in mind, the aprons. Look it up if you've never heard about the aprons, because it's literally what's in the new collective bargaining agreement, and it's important to know. It's important to know. So, their contract situation. Cody Martin has 1 year left on his deal. Second year is non-guaranteed, so next season is non-guaranteed for him. Their core is locked up for at least 3 years. Grant Williams, LaMelo, Brandon Miller, Mark Williams, Tijani Solano, and Josh Green. They're all locked up for at least the next 3 years. Big veteran, Taj Gibson, is on a 1 year non-guaranteed contract. I think he's probably just going to serve more so like what Udonis was to Miami, just being that vet in the locker room, teaching the guys the right way to go about things in the NBA, because Taj Gibson's been around, Another player that's on a 1 year deal is Seth Curry. He's on a 1 year deal. And then also restricted free agents. They got Trey Mann. He's going to be a restricted free agent next summer. And then also Vasil Mimic. He's a restricted free agent. So that's their agents. That's what Charlotte has. And so rookie expectations on Charlotte. They drafted 2 rookies. They drafted Tijani Solano and they drafted KJ Simmons. I think Solano, I'm interested to see what he's going to be able to do. It'll be interesting to watch because I do believe he will be able to bring defensive versatility to the team. But I'm interested to see how quickly he can get himself on the floor and get a part of this rotation. I think there is a spot for him in the rotation coming off the bench for sure. It'll just be interesting to see if new head coach Charles Lee, wants to ingratiate him right away. Because I do think he'll be able to help them defensively. KJ Simmons, I don't really expect him to play much this upcoming year. We'll see if he can steal minutes from Seth Curry. Or even Nick Smith Jr. It'd be interesting to see if he can squeak his way, because I liked him at Colorado. I thought he was a great player at Colorado. I thought he played really well at Colorado. And so it'd be interesting to see if he can crack the rotation as well. But I really don't expect him really to play much this year, maybe next season. But we'll see. Maybe he will crack it. Maybe he'll show out, in team training camp and in preseason and find his way in the rotation. Those are the players, those are the rookies I'm going to be, keep my eye on for that team. I think this team's floor is, again, the lottery. Again, doesn't mean I believe they're going to be that. Doesn't mean they're going to be that. Doesn't, this is just, again, being very vague. And I think their ceiling is a first-round exit. Something to consider. And, again, if you don't agree with me, you think, I could be wrong about how vague I'm being, again, drop in the comments your opinion about the Charlotte Hornets. I'm all open to open dialogue and conversating about it. So my opinion is I expect them to make a big leap this year. Last year, like I said, I hinted on, they finished 21-61. And I know I said I was going to wait, but they may or may not be one of my sleepers to make the play-in in the East. We'll see, because I do think this team is good enough to get up to 35 to 37 wins. And last year in the East, if you got to 36 wins, you're a play-in team. So I expect them to make a leap for sure. I expect them for sure to win more games. And also something to kind of keep your eye out on. Obviously, we know LaMelo has injury history. But for me with LaMelo, I seen that he's going to be wearing ankle braces this year. And so I expect him to be able to at least give us 65, 70 games. I do expect that from LaMelo. And I think if LaMelo's going to give you 65 to 70 games, if Mark Williams is going to be healthy, if Brandon Miller is going to be healthy, which I'm not worried about Brandon Miller, but Mark Williams and LaMelo more so. If those two players are healthy and you still got Miles Bridges and Josh Green, I don't see how they don't make the play-in. I just don't see how they don't, personally. And Mark Williams went to Duke too, by the way. So another thing that my opinion is also I'm excited to watch Charles Lee. It's his first year. It's going to be his first year in being a head coach. He was under Coach Bud for quite some years, and then he spent one season under Joe Mazzulla in Boston. So I'm excited to watch Charles Lee. I think he's a really great assistant coach. I know he interviewed for other jobs, didn't get those. Decided, got the Hornets job. So I think he's going to be a really good first-year head coach. I'm excited for him to bring that championship pedigree from Coach Bud and then being with Joe Mazzulla. I think that's going to be really good for the new guys, My players to keep my eye on, I kind of just named one of them, is Tijani Solanu, seeing if he can crack the rotation this year and what that looks like. Because I believe that after he gets used to the NBA speed and whatnot, I think he will be able to contribute defensively right away. And since LaMelo's been on the team, they haven't really had a defensive identity, whereas this year, I think this is the first year where I think they're going to have somewhat of one. I think Brandon Miller's a solid defender. Josh Green is Josh Green. I think he's going to have a larger role than he's had in his whole career being in Charlotte. He's probably going to start for them. I think he's defensive-minded. Mark Williams is a good pick and roll big man, defensive big man, and a good rim protector. And they got Tijani Solanu. So I think Charlotte's going to have potential to, for sure, improve defensively substantially. And I'm interested to see what Charles Lee, what he brings to the table. Is he going to be a defensive-minded head coach? Is he going to be offensive-minded? We'll see. Because I don't think offensively this team is going to have a problem scoring. LaMelo has no problem with getting that rock up, So, yeah, that's my opinion about that. And then also I want to talk about another player to keep your eyes on, Brandon Miller. Brandon Miller last year played great, in my opinion. I feel like he played really well as a rookie. And I expect him to carry that on to this year and be even better and be even more efficient than what he was last year. He's going to be playing with LaMelo. He had a whole training camp with LaMelo, a whole training camp with Miles Bridges. He'll have a training camp with Mark Williams. And I think it's going to be great for him. I think it's going to be great for him to be around LaMelo and learning and understanding the offense. And he's going to have this opportunity really to be a really, really good quality player. And I expect him to make I expect to make a leap in year 2. I do. Because now he doesn't have all the defensive scheming for him. Now there's obviously going back to scheming for LaMelo, Miles Bridges, and it allows Brandon Miller to, obviously I think when he gets to his peak, he'll probably be able to be a number 2 option. But this upcoming season, he'll probably drop down to 3 to Miles Bridges and LaMelo. Maybe he will sprout up and become 2, which I think he should be 2. But yeah, Brandon Miller, somebody to keep your eye on. I think he will take another leap this year. I think his 3-point numbers last year weren't that good. I think he shot 35% from 3 last year, 35%. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, by the way. Just letting you guys know, I don't have his numbers in front of me. This is just straight off my head. But he shot really good from the free throw line. I think he shot like 85 to 86% from the free throw line. Brandon Miller's a better 3-point shooter than 35%. He's more of a 37. I would say he's like more of a 38 to 39% 3-point shooter. So even if that just comes up alone, he's going to be tapping over 20 points a game. So Brandon Miller, year 2 leap. I'm calling it. I think it's going to happen. So that's something to keep your eyes on. Mark Williams' health. We need Mark Williams to play 65 games. Big Mark, get your act together, bro. We need you for 65 games out there. And I want to go over their draft stuff. So the draft capital, 1 through 14, they keep it. 15 through 30 goes to the Spurs. 26, they own their own pick. 27, they own their own pick. They also get Dallas pick in 27. 3 through 30 they get that. And then they also get, this is a funky stipulation, but they get Miami's pick if it's 15 through 30, but only if Miami conveys their first round pick to OKC this next draft in 25. So really weird stipulation. 28, they got their own. And then if the whole Miami thing still didn't get worked out, they get that in 28. 29, 30, and 31, they get their own. So that's the Charlotte Hornets. And again, if you have anything you believe I missed out on Charlotte, or you feel like I had some good talking points, drop in the comments, man. Let's have a conversation about this stuff. I'm always open to having great conversations and dialogue. The next team I want to talk about is the Miami Heat. Last year finished 46 and 36. They finished 21st in offensive rating, 5th in defensive rating. They are over the first apron. They're slightly under the second apron by $1 million. And they're people that are, contract situations, keep your eyes out on for Miami. Jimmy Butler got 1 year left. He has 1 year left on his contract. He has a player option for that following year. But obviously, we know this last summer, Jimmy wanted a contract extension, and they didn't give it to him. And so he's going to be hungry. Jimmy's going to be hungry this year. So obviously, Jimmy, somebody keep your eyes out on because, Jimmy going to come hungry. He going to come with it. Another player with 1 year left on their deal is Terry Rozier. The following next year is non-guaranteed for Terry Rozier. Duncan Robinson has 1 year left on his deal. 1 year left on his deal. Next year, he has the team has an early termination option. So basically, it's basically like a player option. Just basically, so if he options in, he basically become a free agent. So really weird there, but it's early termination option for Duncan Robinson going into next season if he chose to do that. Josh Richardson has 1 year left on his deal. Alec Burks has 1 year left on his deal. Thomas Bryant has 1 year left on his deal. So that's their contract situation. A lot of people, a lot of 1 year deals, a lot of players going to be trying to prove themselves. Or who knows, maybe Miami will package him up, ship him out, because Miami still got a little draft capital flexibility. So who knows, maybe they'll package up players and ship them out. But yeah, we know Jimmy gonna come because Jimmy trying to get that money. Rookie expectations. So this player, I've been talking about him in my pre-draft. I've been talking about him in my post-draft. I've talked about him during my summer league episode, and I'm pretty high on him. I think I think this guy is the player Miami needed, and when they drafted him, I was like, yes, I was happy for them. Full disclosure, I'm not a Miami Heat fan. I don't have any ties to any team, because to me, if you're going to be talking basketball, for me, I like to do it objectively, and I don't want my emotions to be involved with me analyzing the game and giving my opinion. Okay, so I'm talking about Khalil Ware, and I think I might be pronouncing his name wrong, but Khalil Ware is what I'm reading. Khalil Ware, he went to U of O, then he transferred to Indiana. He was a very highly rated kid out of high school. I think he was like 10th or 11th in his draft class. Again, I have no notes on this at all. Don't have notes on it, just straight off the dome. But, so yeah, he was highly rated in high school, went to Oregon, didn't work out, went to Indiana, played for the Hoosiers, played very well, got drafted by the Heat, and I've been talking about him, and I think he is on my radar. And again, I'm not trying to give you guys too much for the next episode, but he's a player that's on my radar. He's on my radar for Rookie of the Year. I'm just going to say it. He's one of my players that's like on my radar. Doesn't mean I'm going to choose him as like my Rookie of the Year winner or like in my finalist, but he's somebody that's for sure on my short list of players because I've been high on him. The only thing about him I don't like is his little funky hook shot that he be doing. I hate that little nasty hook shot that he be doing. But I do believe at the beginning of the year he might come off the bench. I do believe at some point throughout the season, and I could be wrong, but I do believe at some point he will start for the Miami Heat. Bam, and I've been saying it for years, and I wish I was on this pod for years because you guys would have heard me over the years. Bam Adebayo needs to be a power forward. He is your four-man. He is not a center. That's not him, okay? That's not his position. We've seen him get burnt in the playoffs. It just doesn't work. And that's okay because Bam is an amazing player, but I think Bam needs to be your four and Khalil Ware should be your five. Khalil Ware can step out and shoot the three too a little bit, just so you guys know. If you think that if that's going to cause problems in the lane, I don't think so. And we seen Bam was willing to take threes at the end of last season and into the Olympics. So I think Khalil Ware is somebody to keep your eyes on because he may be starting at some point. And also check out my pod from last summer. I literally did the same thing with Derek Lively. Last summer when I talked about the draft last year when he got drafted by Dallas, I literally came on and did my audio podcast. That's on Spotify. Link in the description. I literally said Derek Lively's probably going to start for Dallas. He didn't start, but he got pretty much started minutes. Him and Daniel Gafford split the minutes, okay? So I think Khalil Ware is going to get a lot of minutes this year to really show his talents. So this team's floor and ceiling, in my opinion, I think Miami is going to be I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think it'll be a first round. It's going to be a first round competitive series, whoever they play. I think their ceiling is a second round competitive series. And again, I'm just being vague. You'll get more of my predictions later on in another episode down the line. My opinion, I'm very excited to see Bam. I'm excited to see Bam play the four-man. I really hope they do it. I don't know if they'll do it. Maybe they'll just keep him at five. But Why are you drafting a big man that high up in the draft if he's not going to start next to Bam? To me, that just makes no sense. So I expect him to play the 4-man. I'm excited to see Jimmy be hungry because I feel like last season Jimmy kind of was not it. I feel like Jimmy was kind of just being lackadaisical around the court. Another one of my opinions is that this may be the last year we see this version of the Heat. Let's say Jimmy does get hurt. Let's say Jimmy does, decline, which I don't necessarily think he will because I think he takes pretty good care of his body for the most part. Obviously, he's had his injuries, but, I think Jimmy takes care of his body pretty well. Like, this could be the last iteration of the Heat we see. That we may be going into a new regime of the Heat. We'll see what happens. But yeah, so that's my opinion. Players to watch for the Miami Heat. Jimmy Butler being hungry. It's a contract year. Nikola Jovic. What happens with him? Does he stay in the starting lineup? Does he go back to the bench? I'm going to see what happens with him in this next year because Jovic got a jumper. In my opinion, he got a strap. He has a strap. I just don't know if Miami's going to really unlock him. I don't know if they're going to let him really get, do his thing. We'll see what happens there. And then we got another player on my watch list is Jaime Jaquez. I think Jaime's going to come off the bench. Again, I'm trying not to give you guys too much, but he's also on my short list of players for 6th man of the year. I'm going to just put that out there. He's on my short list of 6th man of the year. Very efficient player. I really like Jaime's game. So those are my players to watch. Their draft capital. Miami's 1 through 14, they keep it. 15 through 30 goes to OKC, and that's in 25. 26, if it hasn't already been settled, it goes to OKC. 27, 1 through 14, they keep it. 15 through 30 to Charlotte. 28 is to Charlotte if it hasn't already been conveyed. 29, 30, and 31, they keep it. If you have any, give me your opinion on the Miami Heat. If you feel like there was things that I missed out on the Heat or players I should have talked about for players to watch, please let me know. Leave your comments down below. Okay? Next team I want to talk about is the Orlando Magic. And this one I'm kind of excited for. Orlando last season finished 47-35. Offensively finished 24th. Defensively finished 4th. And then their contract situation, they're under both the first and second apron by a pretty comfortable margin. Paolo Banchero is extension eligible starting next summer. We got Moles Wagner. He has a team option next summer. Jalen Suggs is a restricted free agent. Caleb Houston has a team option. Corey Joseph has a team option. Franz Wagner, his extension kicks in next year at $38 million. So contract things just to keep your eyes out on. Rookie expectations. I think Orlando did a really great job at drafting this kid. I was actually really happy and proud of them. I talked about him actually during my Summer League episode, and that's Tristan da Silva out of Colorado. He's 23. I think he's a very, very good shooter, very good high basketball IQ player. I think he's going to crack the rotation for Orlando. I think they're going to find minutes for him. I expect him to get solid minutes. He's a great shooter, a great plug-and-play player. Da Silva is about, I think, 6'8", 6'9". Again, as I said, he's a little older. He's 23, so he's kind of ready. He's ready to hit the ground running. I'm excited to see him get his minutes and really help this Orlando offense go to the next level. So my floor and ceiling for Orlando. I think Orlando is a first round. I think their floor is a first round competitive series. I think their ceiling is the conference finals. Again, I'm being vague. That doesn't mean I think they're going to make it there, but I have to be vague about it because we all know injuries happens, and we just seen the Indiana Pacers get to the conference finals. Okay, like injuries happen. Okay, so the right injuries happen. Orlando's clicking on all cylinders. Paulo's playing, like an all NBA player or MVP. They can get there. So again, I'm just being vague about it. My opinion about the Orlando Magic. I'm very excited to see the impact of KCP right away. KCP is a champion. So him bringing that championship DNA to the Orlando Magic, showing those young bucks how to go about practicing, how to go about game preparation, like him, helping them out. I think I'm just excited to watch that. I think he's going to make an immediate impact, not even just on the court, but in the locker room, in film studies, like players like that, like there's no dollar amount you could put on an experience, and that's just in life in general, not even just in sports, like in life in general, you can't put a dollar amount on experience, Paolo Banchero, I think his usage rate is going to go up this next upcoming season. They surrounded him with more shooting. They got Da Silva. I'm interested to see if Caleb Houston or Jet Howard can crack the rotation this upcoming year. I know defensively they're not, they're kind of defensive liabilities, but Orlando obviously needs more shooting. They got KCP. They obviously got De Silva. We'll see if they use Caleb Houston or not, but they got more shooting now. So I think that's going to allow them to really allow Paolo to work with more space. I expect Paolo to average something about 25, 8 rebounds, and about 6 to 7 assists. I expect his assists to come up to about 6.5 to 7. And I think just based off of that alone, that might be enough for him to win or be in the conversation for most improved. That doesn't mean he's going to be on my list, but I'm throwing that out there to you guys, I know obviously, he was an all-star, so he shouldn't be in the running for it, but the NBA is weird, okay? Like, they're really weird about this kind of stuff, about these awards. They act really weird about it. Another opinion I have, I think the Orlando Magic, they have a lot of their draft picks. They have about 3 to 4 draft picks left in the coming years. I think they need to go out and get Anthony Simons from the Portland Trail Blazers. I think it's a no-brainer. I think Anthony Simons obviously can't be your number 1 player on a championship team. Could he be a damn good number 2 or a damn good number 3 with Franz and Paolo? Yes, he can be a number 3 with those two. I would love to see a backcourt of him and Jalen Suggs with Franz and Paolo, and then their center, I guess, will be Wendell Carter. Like, I think they need to go get Anthony Simons from Portland. Give Portland 2 to 3 first-round picks and get it going. Simons is ready. He's an Orlando native. He's a native of the area. And Orlando needs, obviously, more scoring and offensive punch. And I think Anthony Simons in a pick and roll with Paolo, come on. My Orlando fans, and even Portland fans who know what Anthony Simons is about, and even basketball fans who know what Simons is about. Him with Paolo and Franz, you got something. You really got something down there in Orlando. So I think they should go get him. Really, before Paolo's extension kicks in, even before Franz kicks in, like, go get Anthony Simons, Orlando. By all means necessary, go get Anthony Simons. That's the guy you need, in my opinion. And obviously, yes, he has his defensive woes, but you guys have an elite defense. So you guys are adding to his weakness, and he's adding to your weakness. So I think that's a no-brainer there. Players to watch out for to me in Orlando. I'm interested to see if Caleb Houston gets any run. We'll see about that. Tristan De Silva, I just talked about him. I want to see if Franz can get his three-point shooting back on track. His three-point shooting really fell last year, and I don't know if he's taking bad shots. I'm not 1,000% sure what's going on with Franz, but he's a better shooter than that. So I'll be keeping my eyes out for that. Jalen Suggs. If they don't get Anthony Simons, they don't make a trade, can Jalen Suggs become that third guy for them? That's something I'm going to be watching out for and seeing if he can become that. Orlando drafts, their draft capital. They have their own. It goes to Denver. 6 through 30 goes to Denver. 26. They get the most favorable. So the most favorable of Orlando and the least favorable of Phoenix, and Washington 1 through 8. So really weird stipulations for 2026. 2027, their own. And if the Denver thing is not settled in 25, then in 27 they get Denver's 6 through 30. 28 through 30. From 2028 to 2031, they have their own picks. So again, go get Anthony Simons. Golly. The last team that I want to cover is the Washington Wizards. Last year, they finished 15 and 67. Offensive finished 17th. Defense finished dead last. They're under both the first and second apron. Players under contract or contract situations, keep your eyes out for. Malcolm Brogdon has 1 year left. Corey Kespert's a restricted free agent. Marvin Bagley has 1 year left. Johnny Davis, I believe, is extension eligible next summer. Patrick Baldwin is extension eligible next summer. I'm not extending either one of those players. Rookie expectation, Alex Sarr, obviously, is who they took with the number 2 overall draft pick. He showed me, honestly, I was kind of concerned about him over the summer. He was playing on the perimeter a lot, taking wild pull-up threes. For me, my expectation is for him to be reeled in by the coach, be reeled in by vets, and I expect him to play a more clean game, I'm hoping. That was just summer league and it wasn't something to that's going to be like that moving forward with Alex Sarr. Bud Carrington, I was really, I thought the trade was fair between Washington and Portland. Portland traded their pick. Washington got Bud. Portland got Denny Advi. But Bud showed me flashes during Summer League. I expect at some point, if they get off of Malcolm Brogdon, I expect at some point Bud to get potentially starting, to be honest. He might start. We'll see how he does. But that's somebody to keep your eye on. Another sleeper kid who they draft was Keyshawn George. He has the physical tools. He's kind of a point forward. He's 6'7". I love his jump shot. I love his form. It's very fluid. It's going to be interesting to see what he does. He showed me a little promise during the Summer League. And I'm interested to see if he can crack the rotation this year. I think he will because Washington's not going to be good. So I expect Keyshawn George to get run. So I'll be watching him and Bud and even Alex Sarr's growth. I'll be watching to see what their growth is like this year because they're going to kind of have a free will to do whatever, Team ceiling, I think they're reaching for Cooper Flagg. I think they're reaching for Ace Bailey. I think they're reaching for Ron Harper Jr. I think they're reaching for VJ Edgecombe. Washington going to probably get a top 5 pick. There's nothing else. There's nothing else to really discuss there. I think so we'll go to my opinion about Washington. I think Washington for sure is a lottery team. The young core, I love Bala Coulibaly. Love him defensively. He's great to me, in my opinion. He's a really great defender. Maybe not great yet, but he's really good already. He's a very good defender. I think he's one of the best perimeter defenders that came out of last year's draft. I said that literally in my last podcast from last summer, right when he got drafted. I said that he would be right there. I think he's going to be able to have it, and he showed me this last year that he was able to do that, play great defense. I'm interested to see if offensively what he does this upcoming year. Can he show me more of that? And I think this year he's going to have more opportunities with the ball in his hands, I believe. So I'm excited to watch what Bala Coulibaly can do this upcoming year. I do think Washington needs to come up off of Malcolm Brogdon, maybe even Marvin Bagley. And if we'll see what they do with Kuzma. Kuzma obviously said he want to be in Washington. If I'm Washington, I'm shipping him. I'm getting rid of him. Just strip it down. Why hold on to a player like Kuzma? Kuzma has somewhat of value. You probably can get at least 1 first-round pick for Kuzma, maybe 2. But yeah, I would get up off Kuzma. And I expect a better year out of Jordan Poole, too. That's my opinion about Washington. Players to watch, I kind of jumped the gun. I talked about Bala Coulibaly already. And then all the rookies as well. Those are players I'm going to be watching. And then I just said it again, Jordan Poole having a bounce-back year. That's something I'll be keeping my eyes on because I do think he'll have a bounce-back year. I think, obviously, the whole Golden State thing, I think he was still having residue from that. Also adjusting to defenses, kind of scheming more so for him and Kuzma. I think that was a challenge for him as well. So I expect him to slow down and get back on track this season because what Jordan Poole was last year, he's better than that. He's a better player than that. So that's somebody I'll be watching to see if he can bounce back and kind of, become just a solid player for the Washington Wizards. Washington draft stuff, their draft capital, 1 through 10, they keep it. 11 through 30 goes to New York. They're obviously going to keep their pick. We know that. 2026, 1 through 8, they keep it, or they can swap with Phoenix in 26. 27, they keep their own. 28, they get the more favorable between Washington and Brooklyn. 29, they have their own, and then they get the second most favorable of Portland, Boston, and Milwaukee. And that's from that trade with Portland with the Bud Carrington one and the Denny Advi one. 2030, it goes to Golden State, 1 through 20. And then they get the more favorable between Phoenix, Memphis, and Washington. So they get the most favorable between those three in 2030. 2031, they got their own. And so that's the Washington Wizards. And I just want to take this time to thank you for tuning into the PJ Hoop podcast. If you felt like I missed out on some information, I was, again, I'm covering 5 teams. I'm trying to do it in a good amount of time. So there's obviously other things I could have pointed out or talked about. Or even if you think I made good points, drop down in the link. Drop down in comments below. Leave your comments. And I'll see you next week when I cover the Central Division. PJ out.